The Mahatma Letters, along with the other texts called the Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine, form the core of the Theosophic teachings. Now, these letters were written by the Masters of Wisdom to one A.P. Sinnet and A.O. Hume from October 1880 to 1885, and much later, in after the death of Sinnet, these letters were published by one Trevor Barker. Now, this was because the masters had prohibited Sinnet from publishing these letters, and most of these letters have been written to Sinnet. The letters written to Hume in the original, we do not have the copies of. We have only copies made by Sinnet, who copied down the letters written to A.O. Hume. Now, who were these people? What were these letters all about? Is what we are going to do a study of. And we'll also briefly look at what was in these letters, what are the teachings in these letters. Now, this is a period in the Theosophical Society when it had just started. It started in 1875 in New York, and the two founders, Helena Blavatsky and Henry Olcott, were in New York for a couple of years trying to establish new lodges. That is the time when the first book, Isis Unveiled, was written and published by the society. But by the time they hit 1878, they felt that they were not moving forward, and they decided to go to India at that time. They landed in India and in 1880 February, and that's when they've received an invitation from one A.P. Sinnet, who was the editor of the Pioneer newspaper, which used to publish from Allahabad. Now he had two homes, one in Allahabad and one summer home in Shimla. So after he must have read the Isis Unveiled book, and also Blavatsky and Olcott were writing in numerous newspapers who were connected to spiritualism, which was a big movement at that time. Spiritualism is nothing but having mediums and inviting spirits for learning or teaching or asking questions to spirit. That was a movement all over the world at that time. And Blavatsky and Alcott both were researching and writing about these things. So perhaps in the curiosity of that, because Sinnett was very curious about spiritualism, he wrote to them inviting them to come to Allahabad or Shimla when they had landed in February in 1880. But actually, they ended up coming much later, only in September of that year is when they could meet. And immediately after their coming, almost, Sinnett asked Blavatsky whether he could write to the masters, and she said she'll check. And then she said that one of them has agreed, and that's when the first letters were written to the masters by Sinnett and also by Hume, and they both received the replies. The first letter was, which we have got as letter number one, is received in October 1880. Now, A.O. Hume was the other person who was also writing, and he lived in Shimla. His house is still there. It's on something called the Jacko Hill, and it's called the Rothney Castle. In fact, he was quite an important person for the freedom movement. He started the Indian National Congress, and on his 100th death anniversary, a stamp was issued showing his house, rather his castle called the Rothney Castle, in a stamp. And a lot of letters were received inside this home also, which is apparently converted into a museum now. So these two Englishmen used the knowledge of whatever they were learning from the masters to write books. Sinnett wrote two books. The first one was The Occult World, and the second was the teachings, pure teachings, which was the esoteric Buddhism. Whereas Hume had written this couple of series called the Hints on Esoteric Theosophy. Anyway, this was the benefit of what the masters immediately got from teaching these two Englishmen. These letters were not hidden to other people. In fact, people made copies of these letters even at that time and circulated it amongst themselves. Many of these letters, extracts of these were printed in the Theosophists. Comments were received about it. So they were well publicized then. It was not secretive, except for the personal things that were written in it, which was only for the eyes of those people. Now, currently, these letters are even now available. They are available in the British Library. They used to be kept in the British Museum before, but now they are in the British Library. And some of these letters, in fact, most of these letters were written by a method called precipitation, which the masters would use. The masters would convey their thoughts to a student or chela who would write these letters in the master's handwriting using something called precipitation. Precipitation is a way of solidifying matter from the atmosphere and making impressions on paper with that. So they were not actually physically written. This kind of precipitation was done on paper, and people who have studied these letters find that there is this dash dash dash. Even here you can see tiny dashes, as if there is some sort of rough surface below and they're writing on it. That kind of tiny dash 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 dashes are there in the formation of each letter. And that the ink and the paper appear to be totally united in these letters. It's not like the ink is on top of the paper, rather it's almost as if the paper and the ink were produced at the same time. So something like that is what the scientists who have studied these letters say. So now let's look a little more at the details of this. The fact that these letters were itself were so unusually written indicates that the masters behind them had very unusual past. Not only that, when one reads the letter, one realizes that the masters can actually go into the minds of the people to whom they are writing, because they could tell them about where they were going wrong, what they were thinking, which was wrong. They could also hear conversations that were happening. If they put their mind to something which was happening thousands of miles away, when two people were talking, they could hear what was being spoken. They also had the ability to convert any physical object into an etheric one and then transport it to some other place and then reconvert it back into a physical one. That is how they transported all most of the letters. Most of the letters appeared from nowhere and simply dropped here or there, or appeared in somebody's on top of somebody's table or somewhere. Then the other thing that the masters were able to do, which is indicated in the letters, is that they could project their astral body and appear to some people. So that also has been indicated in many letters. Most of the letters also indicate that they were very up to date with the latest literature, science, and philosophies, all the studies, books that were in circulation at that time. These people were up to date. They also said that all their powers, whatever are these powers of clairaudience, clairvoyance, and materialization of the objects, all that was had a scientific basis, and that it was all natural, and in maybe millions of years from now, mankind, all of mankind will also have these kinds of powers. Now, who were these masters? It isn't allowed publicly to show their pictures, but they are widely available online. The two masters are Master Koothomi and Master Morya. Both of them had an Indian origin. One was a Kashmiri Brahmin, that is Master Koothomi, and Master Morya was a Rajput prince from a royal family. Both of them lived in Tibet, and they had their own secret places where they lived. They also took on pupils from the Tibetan population and Indian population who used to live in their ashrams, and who would come and get training and teachings from them. So these masters, who were they really? There is this hierarchy, and behind with these masters, there are many other great. These masters are called adepts. These with these masters is an entire group of people, about 60, 70 of them, which forms what is called the Great White Brotherhood. Now, this Great White Brotherhood is our enlightened human beings with extraordinary powers, many of them living several hundreds of years, about three to maximum is about 400 years, but they were able to prolong their life to a very large extent. They had discovered the powers of doing that. So if you were to look at who these masters really were in the hierarchy, they were actually at the point when the letters were written. Master Kuthumi was at the fifth level here, which you see adept or Jivan Mukta, and Master Morya was in the sixth level. He had already reached the sixth level. So here we are all at this stage, the what's called probationary or probationer. That is, we are beginning this path. We're not even entered the path. The person who enters the path is called Sotapati in Buddhism. In Hinduism, he is called Parivrajaka. Parivrajaka. Vrajaka. In the next stage is Sakatagamin or Kutichaka, is someone who has still got one home, and he though he is away from society, though he's on the spiritual path, he still has a home. So Kutichaka refers to having a home. The third is Anagamin. Anagamin is someone who will no longer take birth. Sakatagamin is someone who will have to take birth 7 times at least. So that is number two. The third is Anagamin. The fourth is Arhat, and or also called Paramahansa in the Hindu system. And the fifth is Jivan Mukta or adept. So these masters were at this stage, the fifth and sixth. Finally, Kutumi also reached the sixth stage in his initiation. He had reached the sixth stage. So Maurya and Kutumi are in the sixth stage, and you have these other masters who are also at the same level. The Venetian, Serapis, Hilarion, Jesus, and Akoski. Of these, we have information about Hilarion, who also helped to write other theosophic texts like the Light on the Path. And of course, we all know who Jesus is. Hilarion is called the Greek master. He is mentioned a little in the text. Serapis is the Egyptian master. Now, above these people are three higher people called Manu, Bodhisattva, and Mahachohan. Many of these letters refer to the masters referring to their senior, their Chohan. They are always referring to this person called the Mahachohan, which you see in this text. Now, Maurya is coming below Manu. Manu is the organizer. Maurya too is in the role of organizing or power, and the Bodhisattva is above Kutumi. Bodhisattva or Maitreya. This is the teaching line, or in which Kutumi was coming from. So they had to separate roles in this whole hierarchy. Each of these, the work of the world is divided among these people in different ways. And above all this is the three brothers of Sanat Kumar, who all supposedly came from the Venus planet, and Gautama Buddha, who had reached this high level, the eighth initiation level. Above them was Sanat Kumar himself, and then he is the one who takes an active part uh, in whatever's going on in the world. He's present in every single initiation, and above that is the number 10, who's called the silent watcher, and he's not involved, he only watches the whole thing. So this is the hierarchy of the great white brotherhood, and this is where you can see that the masters they are literally overseeing the entire human progress of everybody on earth, and everything. So that's how high they are in terms of the hierarchy. Now there are so many concepts inside these letters. It'll be good to briefly understand a few of the concepts that they talk about. Like, for example, when this very one of the concepts is the God concept, or is there a God? That is one of the questions which is naturally asked by all spiritual seekers, and this is answered beautifully in these letters. It says that this universe does not start by a God per se. It is an involuntary starting, just like our bodies, our minds have, our brains have two parts. That is the cerebrum, which is our direct cognition, logical thinking part, which we have a control over. And then there is a cerebellum, which is the back part, which we have no control over, but that controls all our involuntary organization. Similarly, this universe has got an involuntary thing, which produces the universes at some time and then collapses it back. So when it produces the active part of the time when it's active, it's called Manavantra. And then when it is Manavantra, and then when it is collapsed, it is called Pralaya. So Manavantra comes from two words, Manu and Antra. It is the period of manifestation of a Manu, that is of human life or life. Manu as in life. So Manavantra is the time when the universe involuntarily produces this whole universe, and then Pralaya is when it's completely collapsed down. And here the letters will also indicate what is Pralaya. Pralaya, there are three kinds of Pralaya. One is the complete destruction of the entire universe with all its galaxies. Second is the solar Pralaya, which is the destruction of our solar system. And third is the minor Pralaya, which is there between something called rounds in which we will be discussing, rounds of the planet that we will be discussing later. So now another thing is what is this whole thing called life? What is actually developing? That in Theosophy is called a monad, and it consists of the seven elements, which we in the Hindu tradition is called Panchabhuta, but uh, in the Hindu tradition is Panchabhuta, but in this tradition it's called it is called seven elements, and each they are the same. The first five are the same as the Panchabhuta, that is earth, water, air, fire, and ether. But here Theosophy adds the sixth, which is called Purush Shakti or Buddhi or intelligence, and the seventh, which is Pohat or the unifying force of all of these elements. So what is the concept here is that that one spark of the divine, which is called monad in Theosophy, has got these seven elements in it. What are these seven elements? Are a certain nature that it has, a sevenfold nature that it has, and and that sevenfold nature has to slowly develop, so that it has been called symbolically in these forms which we are talking about, but each one is more rarefied than the other. The earth is the most solid form, then water is little less rarefied, air is more rarefied, ether is even more rarefied, and finally, it becomes less and less dense. Then all of them together form what is called Swabhavat, which is the core originator, the thing that originates, or rather, in the Hindu system, it's called Parabrahm. In the Theosophic system, it is Swabhavat. Now, there are other concepts like what is Ishvara, which is supposed to have also manifested. When this involuntary um, creation or this manifestation of the universe and takes place, the first thing that is manifested is the Ishvara, which is also called Mahat or universal mind. What it is a host of intelligence. Host means a whole collection of intelligences. These intelligences in Theosophy are called Dhyan Chohans. They are not one single entity. And it is in this Mahat's intelligence and this thing that has got all the prototypes or the plans of the future universes, and the force that creates the future universes and whatever is going to happen, that force is called Pohat. It's also called Devi Prakriti in Bhagavad Gita, and it is an intelligent force which directs the ideas in the universal mind or Mahat or Ishvara into manifestation. So this is another concept that is talked about in this book, the Fohat. And Fohat in our physical body is represented by the prana. So the prana is nothing but a unifying force which keeps his whole body together and keeps life in a working condition in our physical body. That same energy or thing called force is called fohat at a much higher level, which actually creates this entire universe. So next is a concept of what is a planetary spirit. A planetary spirit is a highly evolved being. So you get an example of one planetary spirit, which is the Buddha, who has evolved from our human human kingdom or human stage into becoming a planetary spirit. He has gone beyond the stage where he does not need to take physical birth anymore, and he strikes the keynote of every religion. He gives the predominant thoughts, rather, of every religion. So these are some of the key ideas, but there are lots of such ideas inside it. We will explore a few things. There are 150 letters, 126 of them were to AP Sinnet and 24 to Master M. And there are many other things also in this, and you will find that the masters were looking for other people who had certain occult powers or medium like powers, so that they could replace HPB, who was having problems with health and etc. After writing Isis Unveiled, she was not keeping well. In fact, they had to take her back to Darjeeling to one of their ashrams in 1882 because she was so unwell, and because of all the criticism that she was facing from the Englishmen, from so many people. So the masters in these letters, you will find they were looking for substitutes for HPP to carry on with their work. At the same time, when they had to transmit the letters, they needed the energy of HPV or Olcott, especially HPV, and that also was draining her energy. So they needed someone of her caliber or relatively her caliber to just to even to transmit these letters to these Englishmen, which they felt was very necessary at that stage uh, for the movement, because these Englishmen were able to translate that whatever they were writing into articles. The Senate used to write his whatever he learned in the newspapers of that time, whether the spiritualist newspaper or his own newspaper, the Pioneer. So they needed people. So you will find a lot of mediums mentioned here, like Hollis Billings, Stanton Moses, Eglinton, Fern, and there are many chelas also mentioned here, like Damodar and Subara, who were the direct students of these masters. And you will also find that they had a peculiar system of letting the chelas make mistakes and letting the chelas get punished as a natural consequence of their mistakes, and never interfering in the chela's actual life. They would give works to the chela and let them do that work and watch how they do that work. So they were constantly testing all their chelas and giving them tasks and watching them. So that was another thing that you will notice in these letters that is going on. So they've always been in multiple roles. They did multiple things simultaneously, is something you will notice. One part is they were teaching, second part is they were testing, so, and the third part is they were looking for continuity of people who will continue the work that they were doing. So let's take up one or two concepts of these letters, and let's go into that little more deeply. We saw a few of the concepts earlier. I know it's impossible to understand all those concepts. So I've taken up a few simpler things which can be seen. For example, one of the things they say about thoughts, they said that thoughts are things, that is, they are real things. They have tenacity, coherence, and life, and they are real entities. Then they say, every thought of man upon being evolved passes into the inner world and becomes an active entity by associating itself, coalescing, we may term, with an elemental. Now, this requires explanation. See, as per the system, before human, there were animals. Before that, there were plants, the plant kingdom or the entire vegetable kingdom. Before that were the mineral kingdom. Okay, these were the four kingdoms that we all know of. Before that, there were three other kingdoms at a higher plane, not in the physical plane, in probably the astral plane, which is the elemental one, two, and three. There are three kingdoms of elementals. These are even before the atom is formed. There is a certain uh, minor intelligence of obviously some kind of matter which we are not aware of in the physical form of an atom, which is something which makes an atom. You can say trillions of them make one atom. So that matter is called elemental, and in that itself there are three kinds. So what this is saying is that thoughts actually become forms by coalescing with this subatomic matter called elementals, and these form make certain shapes and have certain colors. So then let's continue. The letter says, that is to say, with one of the semi-intelligent forces of the kingdom. So these elementals are semi-intelligent. They have some intelligence, but they are the thoughts sort of combine with these. They sort of make forms literally with these elementals. It survives as an active intelligence, a creature of the mind's begetting for a longer or shorter period proportionate with the original intensity of the cerebral action which generated it. Which means, however strong your thought was, accordingly it will survive. If it was a very not a strong thought, it will disappear immediately. It will form and it will disappear. But if it was a stronger thought, it will be in the atmosphere of the world, of your house, around you, and wherever you go. So that is what it says about thought. Thus, a good thought is perpetuated as an active beneficent force. Supposing you have a good thought, like something good happen to somebody, or let this person think in this way and develop himself, then that will have a beneficent force. It will help that person to develop whatever you are imagining. That thought which you have will help that person. Similarly, an evil one is a maleficent demon. If you have an evil thought about something, that will actually hurt the other person. So man is constantly peopling his current in space with a world of his own. So with every thought we have, we are peopling the world with such thought forms. Okay, crowded with the offsprings of his fancies and desires, impulses and passions, a current which reacts upon any sensitive and nervous organization which comes in contact with it in proportion to its dynamic intensity. So there are some people who will sense that vibe, some people who will sense your negative thought, your negative feeling, or some will sense your positive feeling. So this will depend on people's sensitivity. The Buddhists called it skanda. The Hindu gave it the name karma. So these thoughts that we create actually create our future births also, which we will see in the slides later. An adept evolves these shapes consciously. Other men throw them off unconsciously. So this is all our state. We are constantly producing good and bad thoughts inside us and peopling this whole universe with it. So later on in 1901, C.W. Leadbeater wrote the book Thought Forms, and along with Annie Besant. And in 1908, Thought Power, Man, Visible, Invisible, these books are also written, which all explored these ideas. So you see here the different kinds of thought forms, which were on the left, you see the thought forms that were drawn out after the description given by Leadbeater. And on the right you see the astral forms and the causal bodies and the colors that you see, even the shapes you see of someone. In the middle is someone who's very angry and emotional. These are the thought forms that is there in his aura. This egg represents his physical aura. So these are the thought forms that are there in his aura. And in this first one, you see this yellow light, which represents intelligence or buddhi or wisdom. So there is a lot of these kind of beautiful colors and shapes that are around the aura of a person. So this is another one beautiful teaching in this letter, which is very practical, which you can learn a lot from. When you watch your own thoughts, you know what's going on and how you are affecting the atmosphere and environment. So there are numerous ways we all know today, meditation, and numerous ways to control one's thoughts and direct it in the way that we want it to direct. We want it to go. Now, another teaching which is scattered in this book in many places and is very important, and people don't like talk too much about it because it's difficult to understand, is the whole business of rounds, races, and chains. So, what this is all about is that just as we all know now that you're all theosophists, you know that we have a sevenfold constitution. We have our Atma, we have our Buddhi, we have our Manas, which is split into two, a higher Manas and a lower Manas. Lower Manas is what we actually always function in. Higher Manas is a purified mind and abstract thinking, purified mind, which most of us are not in contact with. Then we have a Kamarupa, which is our feelings and desire body. Then we have a Linga, we have a Prana, which is flowing in our whole system. And then we have the Linga Sharira, which is our etheric double, and then the physical body. So we have these sevenfold body, which is our physical constitution. The earth, too, on which we live, also has a sevenfold constitution, the Atma and Buddhi. The Buddhi component is the spiritual man. The Manas component is the animal soul, or the Kamarupa soul, or physical intelligence embodied in plants and animals. Kamarupa is her creative principle. Sorry, that's not Kamarupa. The Manas component is there in the intelligence embodied in plants and animals. The Buddhi component is in the spiritual soul of that is in man, and the Kamarupa is a creative principle, prana, linga, sharira, and physical body. These are all mentioned in this letter number 67 about the earth itself being a sevenfold body. So it has also got a certain spirit called or called many numerous spirits like that called the planetary spirits, which take care of this earth. Now, apart from the fact that it has a sevenfold constitution, it has got six companion globes. The Earth is also one globe, and similar to Earth, it has six companion globes in different planes of existence. So, just as we saw, there is a physical plane, there is an astral plane, there's a mental plane. Similarly, there are entire globes and different planes of existence, and all of these globes are all around Earth and intermingled with each other. Now we look at how these six other globes are. If we were to break apart this whole thing and make it into a series, this would be called a chain, where starting from A, which will be in the Buddhic plane, a globe on the Buddhic plane where people will live, the animal kingdom, all the kingdoms will be there, and there will be life in it at one stage. Then there is the globe B, the globe C, and V, and the physical plane is globe D, Earth. Above this, globe C was in astral plane, globe B was in the mental plane, and globe A was in the Buddhic plane. After the work on Earth is finished, then the entire life system will go to globe E, which is the astral, again on astral plane, but this time rarified, more less dense than C, which was also on astral plane. And then then after its work is over in globe E, it goes to globe F, which is also a rarified form of globe D, and then goes to G, which is a even more rarified form of globe A. So this series of seven globes is called a chain, and evolution is taking place in these chains. So it starts from the highest spiritual plane of the Buddhic plane, goes down to the physical plane, and then goes up again in the Buddhic plane more after having learned a lot and developed itself. This whole thing happens not, and in the way it happens is in each globe there will be seven root races, and in each root race there will be seven sub races and then seven branchlet races. Now, another thing is that this whole thing, this chain, this movement from A, B, C, D, E, F, G is one round. Seven such rounds will take place, and each kingdom makes seven such rounds. So, whether it's elemental kingdom, elemental one, two, three, there are three of them. Elemental one, two, three. The elemental one makes the higher mental plane, elemental two makes the lower mental plane, and elemental three makes the astral, emotional, kamarupa plane. So these elementals are what which make our mind, which we call our manas, is made by the elemental one and two, and our feelings are made up of elementals or in the astral plane, that is elemental number three. After these elementals develop in this whole seven rounds and all the root races, etc. Then develops the mineral kingdom. After that, the vegetable kingdom, then the animal kingdom, and human kingdom. Each kingdom does 7 rounds with 7 root races, 7 sub-races, and 7 branch-left races. This is like an enormous amount of time for, for the first atom to human form. For that to happen, you can then understand that how our human body itself is such a complex organ, that this complexity took eons to take place. So right now, where are we? What is our progress like? We are right now on the fourth round. As human beings, we have finished 3 rounds. As human beings, we have finished 3 rounds. We are, but human being not as we see ourselves now, in other forms, in lighter, less denser, not as developed, probably more spiritual, but less intellectual. So we are still developing our intellect. We are still learning to deal with our emotions. So we are in the fourth round, and right now in the fifth root race. So there have been 4 root races before this, and there will be another 2 more after us. So we are in the fifth, and there will be a sixth and seventh root race. Now we'll see a little more about all this. So in all, what it says, this book says is that there each root race there are seven in each globe there are 777 births that the monad will have to take. That is a monad, that is a spark of the divine, will have to take 777 births in each of these globes. That many number of births. So now, like I said, that we are in the fourth round. We are the fifth root race and the fifth sub race. Before us, there were 4 other races. Let's look at what were the 4 other races before us. The first was called Polarian. It was a sexless, ethereal being devoid of understanding or language or any cognitive activity. The second is Hyperborean, who was a sweat born. That is, at that time, they were born out of the skin of that. Next generation will be born out of the skin of that being. So sweat born, gigantic semi-human monsters, more ethereal, devoid of the intellectual brain element. So the first one was sexless, ethereal beings, devoid of any language or understanding. The next one is a sweatborn. Now it is able to reproduce, and they are gigantic semi-human monsters. So the Polarian was reproducing by dividing, by fission, how cells divide. So that was the nature of human. This is the human development. So Polarian is one stage, then that is one root race, then the Hyperborean, which is where the being is able to produce through the pores of his body. A pore becomes another being. And we were gigantic semi-human monsters, more ethereal. So also very not dense. They were not physically dense. The third is the first time that a denser form emerges, which is the Lemurian race, and then Atlantean, which is an advanced civilization, and finally now we are in the Aryan civilization, which started in Central this thing Asia, and we Indians are supposed to be the first subrace of that uh, Aryan root race, and the fifth subrace as per the letters, was at that point the Englishmen, the Europeans who were reading these letters. So this is what has been said. Now, each of these root races, there is they before when they collapse, when they end, along with their ending, even the nature of the continents on earth change. Just like our skin, our body changes its cells every 7 years, the earth changes its entire skin, which is the continents and the water bodies, completely with every root race. So whatever was the continents in the Lemurian time, which we will just see in a bit, like this is the Lemurian continent, that will change, has changed completely. What was land then, all the red parts that you see are land, and if you want to just see, it's light here, but like this is South America. This is North America, and this is all Asia at the back, which you see in white form. This was all sea at that time. All of this was sea. What you see in red is all that was land, and what you see in blue is probably that was all ice. So this is what the Lemurian continent was like. This was several million years ago that the Lemurian period was there. They say that man came on Earth 1.8 crore years ago. So this beginning of the Polarian Hyperborean is all from 1.8 crore years, and along the way, this Lemurian continent, that is the third root race, has happened. And every time this whole thing lasts about the every root race lasts about 4.32 million years. So after this Lemurian continent, we have what is called the Atlantean continent. When the Lemurian completely subsided and went underwater, as you saw before this, the Lemurian was in the Indian Ocean. You can see it stretching to Australia and also combining with some parts of Africa. So all of this went underwater. And the next continent was the Atlantean continent, which rose and which was in the Atlantic Ocean, where on the left you see America, which does not exist right now. You see South America, which a part of it was Atlantean, and then on the right you see the Atlantean continent had the whole of India in it. So it was India was part of the Atlantean continent, and the rest, everything else that you see are remnants of the previous sort of sinking. They over time they sunk, but they all the rest is water. So all this Russia everywhere, all this is water. Africa, all of this is water. That's why you hear of bones in the Sahara Desert and fish bones and things like that, because they were all at one point water. So this is the Atlantean continent, and this was the fourth root race. Now, or to understand all this in more depth requires more time. So just a little glimpse of where we are, how long this whole evolution has been taking place. We think that we have just evolved in the last 2-3 thousand years. It is not the case. The Atlantean civilization was a very advanced civilization. They had discovered flying. They had discovered so many things which we even now we don't know the secrets behind them, because those secrets were the reason why they were able to build things like the pyramids. So whatever were those, they were able to find the ways to develop their powers to such an extent which today we are not aware of. So that they were a very advanced civilization, but for certain reasons they all collapsed. As per the system, what the masters explain, that the collapse happens either due to fire or water. That is, either there is going to be enormous subterranean, that is under the water, volcanic fire which causes floods. So either it's fire or it is simply flooding. So all this land mass keeps changing all the time. It keeps changing, which actually gives you an idea of how much importance one should give to infrastructure. We all in India especially give a lot of importance to infrastructure, road building, and all that. Really, it's all really temporary in the very, very long run. In the temporary part, of course, we need all of it, but it is not the purpose of life as such. The purpose of life is to develop the spiritual self. So that is the next slide, which is saying, what is the purpose of this whole business of evolution? It is to develop a perfected human being. The Buddha is said by the masters to have evolved to the extent of how much evolution will be there in a sixth round person. He had already evolved. That means he was able to function literally in his wisdom self. Everything that he said and did and acted was from that high space of wisdom, and he was a sixth round man. And but Buddha himself will have to once more actually take births in the subtle realms. You saw earlier that when we were in these rounds, we have the subtle realms. Buddha himself will have to take place in the sixth round. In these subtle realms, he'll have to take place birth again, not on physical earth, but in the sixth round, in these subtler realms, he'll have to take place in from a certain root race onwards. He will have to take birth in those subtle realms. So, and he will further evolve into what is called the Dhyani Chauhan, who are literally the planetary spirits. They are the ones who will take charge of the evolution of future planets. So, all our aim is the whole aim of humanity is to reach Buddha's level, just Buddha's level, by the end of the seventh round. We are expected to reach the Buddha's level. So uh, the letter number 44 says, as at the sixth round he may become a Buddha, the seventh before the Pralaya, a Dhyan Chauhan. So not only Buddha but also Dhyan Chauhan or Dhyani Chauhan. So that is the highest expectation for all of us, and that is why we keep on taking births, learning our lessons, developing our intellect, controlling our emotions, doing the right action, and also resolving all the karma that we have created, facing it, and harmonizing our karma back to null. So the masters say there is just one big law behind this whole universe. That is the law of harmony or karma. Whatever action we have created, we have to resolve that action. The masters also indicate that in another 25,000 years from now, the whole of British Isles and also France will be completely underwater. And once more, all the islands which were on the Atlantic Ocean, which was called the Atlantis Islands, and those which were there on the Indian Ocean, which are called the Lemurian Islands, will all rise up again, and much of whatever continents we have will all subside down in another 1 million years from now, and we will have the next root race, the sixth root race, which will be more advanced spiritually than us, develop on these continents. So this all has been predicted and taught in these letters. Another very important teaching in the master's letters, which will also come frequently, is that these masters constantly test their students, their chelas, or the people who are in the probationary path by allowing them to make mistakes, not correcting them when they are making certain decisions, because they have to take out the original true man apart from his external appearance. A person may appear to be very kind, appear to be very gentle, but there'll be inside him a storm of jealousy, anger, hatred, and all that. So, all that has to come out, and all that is called the dweller on the threshold. This word dweller on the threshold comes from a book written by Bulwer Lytton, and the book is called Zanoni. Bulwer Lytton happens to be the father of one of the viceroys of India in the 1880s, one Lord Lytton. And his father, Bulwer Lytton, was a writer, wrote many books, and two of his books, The Coming Grace and Zanoni, are very theosophical and worth reading, very nice stories. So, the dweller on the threshold is actually refers to all that is wrong in us, which is preventing us from entering that door to go to higher up the spiritual stage. So the threshold represents an entrance point. So for us to enter into the higher spiritual levels, our own negativity, our own whatever is wrong, we have to face. And here the master says, furies called doubt, skepticism, scorn, ridicule, envy, and finally temptation. These are the passions that we have. Another thing that I had discussed in the beginning about thoughts, how though when we die, our physical body dies, but our emotions and our minds do not immediately die. All the tendencies that we have of our thinking and of our feeling, whether we have a tendency to be envious of people or of ridiculing people, or if we get tempted by things which are wrong to do, or we are skeptical about this whole spiritual journey, all that will remain with us in future birth. So if you're a man in this birth and you have gone, your physical body might have become a woman, but but the rest of you, that is the emotional and the mental, you carry back those things which you have left behind, and you will carry similar tendencies, similar feelings. Some people have extraordinary fears of totally irrational fears of something, or some people have very clearly defined moral ideas. They will never do anything wrong. All that are tendencies which we carry. So our thoughts and our feelings are more have a much longer lifespan than our physical body, and that is why it's very important to look at that part. Now, amongst all of these teachings, one of the most fundamental teachings in which is mentioned very often in these letters is that there has to be universal brotherhood, which is the sense that all are equal and all of us are deeply connected, not just those brothers and sisters that we actually have, but every single person out there is our brother, and we treat each and every person with a certain secure foundation of morality. Unless we are that straightforward and that righteous, there is absolutely no other purpose in learning all of these things. So, the beautiful quotation from letter number 5 is that the term universal brotherhood is no idle phrase. Humanity in the mass has a paramount claim upon us. It is the only secure foundation of universal morality. If it be a dream, it is at least a noble one for mankind, and it is the aspiration of the true adept. Now, these letters, as I said, 150 letters covering so many topics, so much information. It's very hard to read them on your own. So, one suggestion I have is that you go to this YouTube channel called The Secrets of the Mahatma Letters. It's very easy to find. One Terry Hunt and Benedict, these two people are take one letter at a time. They do not only discuss the philosophy, they also discuss all the background stories that were there, all the people that were there, and they bring out a lot of information. So if you, the one good idea is to read the letter one to beginning from the first letter, and better to take the book called Mahatma Letters, edited by Vic Houchin, not the Trevor Barker one, but Vivek Houchin's edited Mahatma Letters in chronological order. That is the book to start with, and that book, it would be a good idea to use this Secrets of the Mahatma Letters. As you read, you watch one of the videos of this channel, and you will keep progressing along the way. That is one way. Another thing you can do is simultaneously you can also refer to the YouTube channel of Theosophy India. You will find some brilliant speakers like Vibha Saxena and so many people who, Shikhar also, and so many are there who have given, Shindeji is there. Many people have given talks on individual letters. So if you want clarification on certain things which you are not getting clarified, you have doubts about, you can always refer to the same letter as exposed in the Theosophy India section. So all this helps in developing understanding about the letters. Automatically, one thing which will happen is when you read one thing in the letter, you will be led to other things that you will have to read to understand the letter. Sometimes you have to read some old Theosophist newspaper uh, article because the letter would have mentioned that. Sometimes some books are referred to. So many things will become. It will be difficult. Sometimes you will be able to read, sometimes you will not. And this Mahatma Letters book, it's not possible to sort of read it in one go and understand everything in one go. It takes years and years of studies. So you can begin one. You can say I'm dedicating this next 6 months to the study of this book, and spend 6 months reading only this book and connected literature, and then give it all up and come back to it after some time. So this kind of a thing you can keep doing. There are many beautiful things in this letter, and it's impossible to go into it. It goes right into cosmogenesis and anthropogenesis, and but it's a very fruitful and beautiful exercise. So thank you all for listening, and I'm ending here.